So thank you very much for all of you. And to be in the last panel is always a disadvantage because people have spoken all the things that need to be spoken, and you're left with not much to say. But then, as the topic of our panel is Buddhist world in Asia and beyond, there's a geopolitical element. I just want to bring it to, try to bring it to a current issue. In October this year, just last month, China organized the World Buddhist Congress, and Chinese Global Times claims that 800 delegates from 71 countries participated. Then in November, just this month, a few days ago, Delhi organized the first Asia Buddhist Summit with 600 delegates from 32 countries. So you can clearly see, China is doing it, and then India is following it. Why I mention this is because Tibet is also a vital issue. When I was Sikyong, it was in July. Doklam had just happened. That's the border dispute, between India and China. Mainly, Doklam is in Bhutan. The Chinese 20,000 troops came to Doklam, and then Indian troops had to go up and then push back. There was a standoff and continues to have a standoff. And a few weeks later, we were celebrating His Holiness Dalai Lama's birthday. I happened to be in Delhi. And then I met this Indian journalist. He said, Lobsang, I'm going to Tibet now, and then to China. And we are 7 of us journalists. We're going, and we are given free access and all kinds of, travel visits. And then they came back after 10 days or so. 5 or 6 Indian newspapers, you can Google, all have same headlines. China will choose this the next Dalai Lama. India cannot interfere. Can you imagine 6 or 7 newspapers in India, same headlines, So Doklam happened, still China sends a message. And then Galwan happened, that's in 2022, where again 50,000 Chinese troops came to the Ladakh area, and there's still a standoff between India and China. Why I say this is the whole border of so-called China and India was actually a border of Tibet and India. So there was no demarcation, and the dispute arises. So when we talk about geopolitics and Dalai Lama's reincarnation, because it's not just Tibetan and 6 million Tibetans. Whole of Himalayan belt, that's India, then Tibet, you move up Inner Mongolia, then you move up Mongolia, then you have to move up to Russia, actually we call it Outer Mongolia or Mongolia. That borders up north is Buret Republic and Tuva Republic. Both are Buddhists, both follow Dalai Lama as their spiritual leader, right? And then you have Kalmyk on the Europe side. So you're looking at the whole territory. If you look at the map, it's a huge territory. And on the eastern front of India, then you have Burma, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Singapore. So you're talking about, geographically a huge territory where it will have an impact when it comes to selection of reincarnation of Dalai Lama. And then not just in Asia and beyond. How many of you know the 3rd largest religion in Italy, where the Rome is Buddhism? Right? 5th largest religion in France is Buddhism. And in America, all over the world, because 14 Dalai Lamas traveled far and wide, and many Buddhist teachers from Asia have traveled to Western countries and beyond. So it has major global importance and significance as well. Now the question was raised whether we should end the institution of Dalai Lama. I would put forth an argument and say, why should we? Mainly because for 800 years we have practiced reincarnation, selection reincarnation. It has been a very successful, industry or tradition. Having said that, all the abuses that we talk about, scandal and corruption, it's all there. But we have internal mechanism to root it out. The reincarnation process is very democratic, right? You can be a very high Lama. If you go to the history, many high Lamas' lineages have disappeared mainly because there was a corrupt system process, and they choose a wrong one, and then they lose faith, they lose followers, and they lose donations, and the Labrang disappears. So it's very democratic and transparent one. So we have mechanism where we can root out the weak ones and then carry on with the strong ones. With the institution of Dalai Lama, if you look at all the 14 Dalai Lamas, we can reasonably claim of the 14, 9 Dalai Lamas were very successful. First to third, and the fourth was Mongolia, who died at the age of 27, who could not do much. Fifth lived long and established Ganden Podang and ruled over Tibet. And sixth, again, died young, but he turned out to be a great poet. So his contribution as a poet, his poem in praise of his, mistress or girlfriend, it's widely, read and very popular in the Tibetan, culture. And seventh and eighth, as a religious figure, were quite successful. It's just 9, 10th, 11, 12th, who died at the age of 21, 18, 14, maybe 24. And then the 13 and 14 were very successful. Now, of the 14 Dalai Lamas, 9 were successful. Of the remaining 5, unfortunately, one from Mongolia died very young, but 9, 10th, and 11, 12th all died young, which coincided with the Golden Urn, 1793 ordinance, and Amban interference, and many historians say that they were assassinated, killed, or poisoned just before or at the time they took over the sovereignty or rulership of Tibet, right? So except for China's interference, right, actually the institution of Dalai Lama has been very successful. So, Mr. Shen Weirong said, perhaps we should free Bodhisattva from samsara, take politics out of religion. If we take Beijing out of institution of Dalai Lama, we are doing quite well. Because if you take Golden Urn, if we have used Golden Urn in selecting the Dalai Lamas, claimingly, 9, 10, 11, 12 Dalai Lamas, all died young. So Golden Urn is a bad luck for institution of Dalai Lama. Okay? Even if China uses Golden Urn, likelihood that that boy is going to die very young is very high, because 100%, 4 of them died before the age of 24, right? So we have to take, if you have to take samsara out of Bodhisattva, we have to take, I think, Golden Urn out of the Dalai Lama selection process. Now, why I say this is because, if you look at what Chinese government is trying to do is, they have come up with this order number 5. This is a regulation in selection of the Dalai Lama, right? But if you analyze it further, you find that till 1990, Chinese government didn't have any law or regulation in selection of any reincarnated lamas. Okay, we have hundreds of them. Chinese government didn't bother. In 1990, they just woke up and said, we need a regulation. Why? Because His Holiness Dalai Lama won Nobel Peace Prize, and Panchen Lama died. Then said, oh, we need a regulation now. They came with a provisional regulation in 95, right? Why? Because Panchen Lama had to be selected now. So they invented the regulation post-death of Panchen Lama. Then finally they said in 2007, oh, we need to have a regulation to regulate all the tulkus and all the reincarnated lamas. So order number 5, if I may. So, this long preamble which says that all the lamas has to be born in Tibet. And then essentially you can say, they have to respect the state as more important than spirituality, all that. So a reincarnated living Buddha shall not be interfered with or be under the dominion of any foreign organization or individual. That's one of the regulations. But then the flaw of the order number 5 is that in 2007, when the regulation came, they recognized 300 lamas. But then April of 2017, they had 700 reincarnated lamas. That's registered, April of 2017. But in August of 2017, it increased to 1,300, from 700 to 1,300 in 4 months' time. 700 more, more than double. And then Jambe Gyatso, he's still in Tibet. He is now perhaps the senior most Communist Party member. He said corruption. How can you have, double the number in 4 months when you didn't have, so many lamas in 10 years' time? So he named, there's a huge open letter if you read. So if you want to implement the order number 5 for any reincarnated lamas, including Panchen Lama and Dalai Lamas, people inside China, even Communist Party members are saying corruption, it's misuse. Oh, I thought I had another slide. Anyway, so China is trying to control the selection of reincarnated lamas inside Tibet. That's order number 5. Now, if I expand it geopolitically, as I mentioned, Dalai Lama's influence in Russia. Now, increasingly with Ukraine war, right? Russia is dependent on China at the moment. Now, that is being used as a leverage. And then religious leaders in Buddhism are coming under tremendous pressure. So you might know His Holiness Dalai Lama has not been allowed to visit Russia for more than a decade. Now, what we hear is that Buddhist group is under tremendous pressure to invite Chinese Panchen Lama. There's a delegation, a Buddhist delegation of the president and all. They had to go to Beijing and meet with Chinese Panchen Lama. Now, Kremlin wants to organize, like India and China, major Buddhist conference, and where Chinese Panchen Lama will be invited. Now, Tuba is another republic where Dalai Lama is also a leader. Now, Tuba's religious Buddhist community is essentially, I don't want to say controlled, but influenced by Sergei Sogo, the former defense minister of Russia who invaded Ukraine. He's from Tuba. By the way, he claims to be Orthodox Christian, okay? We believe that. But in Tuba, actually, it's 0.6% Orthodox Christian, the majority are Buddhist, they follow Dalai Lama. So his foundation controls Tuba's Buddhist community. And Kalmyk is far off. They are also coming under tremendous pressure, from Beijing to Kremlin to all this region. Now, Mongolia is also coming under tremendous pressure now. Haga Jinsu Thamba's reincarnation was recognized by His Holiness Dalai Lama. He, it took some time, and he was recognized, and in Dharamsala. But then, who becomes his teacher, right? All these are under tremendous pressure. Now, Beijing is saying, "Oh, Kagajin Thama should come to Beijing. We will provide you teacher. We will provide you monasteries. We will provide facilities," and then Mongolia is under tremendous pressure. So, the geopolitical significance of this is already being played out. Now, interestingly, the governor of Tibet Autonomous Region and the party secretary of Tibet Autonomous Region, they are, leaders of domestic issues. But now they travel to all the Buddhist countries, to Nepal, to Burma, to Thailand, to Singapore, even Maldives. Maldives went through this, food crisis. Beijing donated 1 million bottles of water of Tibet to Maldives. And who went to deliver? The leaders of Tibet Autonomous Region. So you can clearly see Beijing is laying out the groundwork, in Southeast Asia as well. So, and then putting pressure on India. So that's how, if you look at all this and then you say, Beijing is already has a game plan. And then as Tendor said, even if we want to think of reforming the institution of Dalai Lama, Beijing is not letting us do it. So that's another important point that I want to make. And then do I have a few minutes? 3 minutes left. Yes. Now, inside Tibet, we don't know what will happen in the postgate scenario. Because for us, His Holiness Dalai Lama is life and soul of Tibetan civilization, Tibetan identity. As Tendor gave many anecdotes, I do remember meeting a Tibetan lady in the plane flying from Dharamsala to Delhi. And she was very reluctant, but she recognized me. And after some we started talking, she said, You know what? I saved for 10 years and I applied for passport. For 10 years, I bribed every official in Tibet and China to get a passport for one wish. Come to Dharamsala, see His Holiness Dalai Lama. I fulfilled my desire, I'm going to go back. Now imagine Tibetans in Tibet. What will happen if His Holiness passes away in exile? So worst case scenario, there could be major uprising in Tibet. And Beijing should be cognizant of that. And best case scenario, we hope it will be best case scenario. But my fear is that the devotion and the faith the Tibetan people have, and for His Holiness always express a desire to visit Tibet, visit Wutaishan Mountains for pilgrimage. And this request has been denied time and again. And Tibetan inside Tibet know this. And Tibetan outside also, we all know this. Right? And then so for us, and geopolitically, institution of Dalai Lama has major geopolitical ramification, not just in Asia, even in Europe and America as well. So with that, I want to end, and hoping my colleagues, Devesh, he has agreed to, break legs, right? And Josh is always a very eloquent speaker, and they will do the heavy lifting.